Good morning, YouTube, Booktube. This is Johnny. I thought I'd make a video. The last time I looked at my YouTube channel, Saint on Fire 777, I made a video 21 hours ago. And I think by the time I filmed this video and download it, it'll have been 24 hours since my last video. As I mentioned in a recent video, I used to make videos a couple of times a week. There are some people who film like a couple of videos a day and then post them. But I tend to try to space them out because it just all depends. You know, sometimes I've gone 4 or 5 days since making a video. Sometimes longer, but I try to space them out, but every couple of days, 2 or 3 days. Today is February the 11th, 2024. Is 11 o'clock at night, not at night, in the morning. Yeah, it's late Sunday morning, and my wife is at church. My wife grew up in the church. She grew up in the Christian Reformed Church here in Holland, Michigan. My wife has gone to church her whole life. She was baptized as an infant in the Dutch Reformed, or Christian Reformed Church, which is a Dutch Reformed, and she's a child of the covenant. And that's why I married my wife, because she was a devout Christian. When I met her, almost going on 45 years ago, that's the first thing that impressed me, that she was a sincere, she was a sincere Christian. She has always been a devout Christian, and I wanted a Christian wife and somebody who, and plus my wife is very transparent. There's nothing fake about my wife. What you see is what she is. She's not, she's just real. So yeah, she's at church and I'm sitting here, as my habit is. I'm a creature of habit, looking at my clock. My wife bought this clock for me many years ago when I was in the work world. It has an alarm on it, and I had to get up around 5:30 to get ready to go to work. And she bought this clock for me, and I keep it by me, and it's kind of like an obsession with me. I got to have it by me all the time. When I go down the lower level, I take it with me. There's a clock down the lower level, and I don't wear a wristwatch. I did when I was working. I had a cheap $25 wristwatch I used to carry. It's on my desk in my study. But I always wanted to live where I didn't have to keep track of time. But now, since I keep a diary, I'm always writing down the time. I'm on page 129 this morning. 129 pages for the year 2024. Like I says here, I wrote this top page. It is 9:56 a.m. Sunday morning. I'm waking up, reading still for morning devotions. And then it has the next paragraph. It is 10:24 a.m. a typical morning. And then I have, it is 10:40 a.m. I fed Ollie his last meal for the day. See, I'm always keeping track of time. And I'm always thinking of time. Like I said, I have this obsession with time. When I was born, and when I was a young boy, and because now that we have grandchildren. Josie Cora just turned 6 years old this week, and then next week our grandson Jack, our daughter's son, will turn, I think he turns 7. And so I'm always aware of our children, our adult children, Like our oldest just turned 43 in January, and then and then Carol just turned 71 in January, and so there's time. And there's only a certain amount of time, as I have mentioned in my videos, where you work out your salvation with fear and trembling. Time is just going by so quickly, and I used to hear years ago when you would talk to older people, you know, time just goes by so fast. And that's true. It's like, you know, I'm amazed. My wife and I, we get up in the mornings and we have our morning routine, and then we have devotions. We read through the Gospels. Right now we're going through the Gospel of Mark, and then we're going to go through the whole New Testament, and then we read from the Valley of Vision, a collection of Puritan prayers and devotions, and then we read another book before we go to bed at night. My wife and I, we read a devotional book, and we close the day with prayer. And it seems we're always doing the same thing. We wake up in the morning, we have devotions, we pray, and then before you know it, it's time to read another devotional book, and then we have a time of prayer, and then we go to bed. And the days just roll by. And they just get by. And then you realize as you get older, like I'm going to be 72, that your days are numbered. Now, I might live, by God's grace, to be in my 90s. I mean, might hit 100. As I mentioned to you, that Carol has a friend who's 97 years old. And Carol's mother, when she passed away, she was 89 years old. And Carol's grandmother was in her 90s when she passed away. So you're always realizing that how time is going by. And like today is February the 11th, 2024. It is a Sunday, and we're going in the middle of the month. I mentioned that there's 29 days in the month of February, not 28. And then there's going to be March. In March, my wife's going to fly out to Denver, Colorado to visit our daughter and her husband and 4 children. And I go see my doctor next month for my 6-month physical checkup. Every 6 months, I see my doctor, you know, a health checkup. And this coming Thursday, I have an appointment to have my eyes checked so I can get new glasses, and time. And then I also have a session with my psychologist next month. No, maybe this month. I can't remember now. I think it's this month. I can't remember. Yeah, I have. And that every 4 weeks I meet with my psychologist, and we just blab away and I talk like I do in these videos. So yeah, time is just flying by. And I was thinking about time. Last night I was, I've been going through my old comments on my videos. And right now the comments I'm responding to were posted 4 years ago. And but I came across a comment by Todd the Librarian, who he's a booktuber, and he hasn't made that many videos, and I kind of unsubscribed to him when he stopped making videos, but I do keep track of him. He has 2 channels. He has a booktube, and then he has one where he's a woodsman, a trapper. He's into, outdoor living. And so I typed in Todd the Librarian just to see if he had made any recent videos. And the most recent video was he was filming from his cell phone. He was coming down the gravel road to his house there in Kentucky, and his house was up in flames. It was burning down. And that was his home. That's the only thing he really had. And he was like in his 50s, maybe late 50s, and he lives off the land. He's a trapper, and he gathers wild mushrooms and wild herbs, and he basically lives off the land, and you know, he does odd jobs, and he's a jack of all trades. But there he was. He was coming down just the day before Christmas, and he just was filming his house burning down, and everything just gone. You know, all his books and his manuscripts, his furniture, his clothes, everything just going up in flames. And I was remembering that because when many years ago, before I met my wife, and I was living out in California, that's where I'm from, I used to stay in a little wood hut on my foster parents' property, foster mother. She was a divorcee. And there was a little wood hut on her property down in the woods. And it was built by a guy that I knew. He built it when he was, I don't think he ever finished high school. He was he kind of learned different trades in order to make a living. But he built this little wood hut. And I would often stay there over the years when I had no place to stay. You know, if I didn't have a home or a place to sleep, I would go to the wood hut. I'd go down in the woods and I'd sleep there. And I had a little lamp, and I had a little camp stove, and I had a little door and windows. You couldn't stand up in it. It was just a little tiny little wood hut. It had a little trail, you know, in the woods, and all around though, my foster mother's property were houses. It wasn't a residential area, but my foster mother had owned 20 acres where she kept goats and horses and chickens, and and it was in a canyon. But all around here was a residential, and then there was a golf course off on the left, you know, off in the distance. But there were houses all around, but she had 20 acres, and the land went down into a canyon. And down at the bottom of the canyon was a park called Wildcat Canyon. And along Wildcat, if you went down into her property, you come to Wildcat Canyon, which was a park, and it had a long trail that led all the way to Berkeley, to Tilden Park in Berkeley, California. But anyway, about the wood hut, I burned it down. That's the thing. Well, just before I left California to go to Reformed Bible College in 1977, 78, one time I was in the wood hut, and I had this lantern that you put like liquid fluid in, and then you would light it. And what happened, I spilt the liquid fluid that would get into this little lamp, and it set fire. Well, it went underneath the house, the crack in the floor of the wood hut, and I couldn't put the fire out because it went underneath, and the whole thing just went immediately up in flames. The whole thing burned down. Now, I was able to take out, you know, my sleeping bag, but everything else it was just a little tiny house. You could hardly even move in it. You could sit in it, and you could have a little, you know, you could basically sit there. You couldn't stand, and it had windows, and I had put a skylight on the roof, so light would come down. It wasn't so dark, but it burned down. And there I was. I mean, I didn't have a place I could go and retreat to. Now, back in those days, before I was married and I lived out in California, my girlfriends had homes, and so I had a place I could take a shower, or, you know, I get meals. And then I had when I was when I was on staff at the Richmond Rescue Mission, I had a little room. And what that room was, in the rescue mission, there was a big storage area, and then there was a loft. It had a little ladder going up into a hole, and then you went up there, and there was a bed and a little desk. It was back in the storage room, and that's where I slept. But then, as I mentioned, after a year at the rescue mission, I told the superintendent that I wanted to leave at night because I didn't want to just be there 24 hours, 7 days a week. So then after a year of being on staff at the rescue mission, I told him I'm going to spend the night at the wood hut. And that's what I would do. I come early in the mornings. I had my own key to the door to the rescue mission. But then at night, around 5 or 6 o'clock, there were other staff members. It wasn't just me. There were like 3 or 4 other people on staff, and some of those guys lived there. But I would leave, and I would walk or take a bus up into the Richmond Hills, go to the wood hut, and that's where I'd sleep. And on weekends, I didn't work on weekends. After a couple of years or a year, I told the superintendent, I'm going to take off I won't be here on weekends. I'll come back on Sunday evenings after church. But the wood hut burned down just before I left California. And then I got an apartment for a while, and I was working at a 7-Eleven store. But I remember when the wood hut burned down, because I hadn't been going there for 10 years, since high school. And some of the people were kind of upset that I burned it down, even though they didn't live there. There were still some people that would use it to hang out. But so when I saw that video of Todd's house burning down, I remembered when the wood hut burned down. And because, that was really, the only place I really could retreat to. Now, I had girlfriends, and I had, I could get an apartment, but it was kind of like my life was just burning down, and I was coming to an end. As I mentioned in my video, after I left the rescue mission, for a year, I left the rescue mission. Then for a year, I just kind of didn't know what to do with my life. And then, by God's grace, God brought me back to Himself, and I got my life back together by God's grace. And I was talking to my minister in Berkeley, and I said, I want to go into the gospel ministry. So, but I had a year and a half of college, but I had to finish college before I could go to seminary. To be a Presbyterian minister, you have to have 4 years of college before you can go to seminary. You have to have a liberal arts education. So I had to finish college before I could go to seminary and train to be a gospel minister. And I knew about Reformed Bible College, which now today is called Kuyper College. It's moved and has a new name. I knew about Reformed Bible College because of the church I went to in Berkeley, Orthodox Presbyterian Church in Berkeley, California. And so I applied to Reformed Bible College, got accepted, and I knew about a rescue mission in Grand Rapids, and I applied for a job at Mel Trotter's rescue mission to be a night supervisor, and to live there, get a place to live and food and be on staff. And so Mel Trotter's mission in Grand Rapids, Michigan, I contacted them. The superintendent said, yeah, that I could join their staff, and then I could live. It was a 3-story building. On the top 3rd floor, men lived there, usually older men and then staff members. And there was a room for me. So I got a job at the Mel Trotter's Rescue Mission. I only paid $50 a week. I don't know how I paid for my Reformed Bible College. It was something, I can't remember what it was. So I so I left California, drove to Grand Rapids, drove to the rescue mission, and rest is history. I was a night supervisor. In the mornings, I would give devotions at 6 o'clock in the morning when they opened the doors for men to have their breakfast, their meals. And then at night, I would sign the men in. I was a night supervisor. I'd sign the men in and make sure they got clean clothes and showers and a bed. And I did that until I got married. And then I left the rescue mission, Male Trotters, after I got married. And I was going to Reformed Bible College full time. And then I met Carol and we got married, and rest is history. So that's the history of the burning down of the wood hut. And now I call this house that we have owned going on 35 years, this is the wood hut. This is the hermit hut. That's the history. I still see myself as just living in a hermit hut, and but now it's bigger. Now I live in a quiet, middle-class. Holland's very traditional, conservative. You have Hope College, you have Western Theological Seminary, you have churches everywhere. It's kind of a Republican stronghold here in Southwest Michigan. I married a wonderful woman. I have wonderful children, wonderful grandchildren, and but I know that everything is going to go up in flames. Everything is temporal. Nothing is eternal except that eternal life that we receive by God's free grace, mercy, and love in Christ Jesus. So yeah. So I always look at this verse in 2 Corinthians. Always comes to my mind when I think about. He says. Therefore, it says in 2 Corinthians chapter 4, going down to verse 16, therefore we do not lose heart, even though our outward man is perishing, yet the inward man is being renewed day by day. For our light affliction, which is but for a moment, is working for us a far more exceeding eternal weight of glory, while we do not look at the things which are seen, but at the things which are not seen. For the things which are seen are temporal, but the things which are not seen are eternal. For we, in chapter 5 of 2 Corinthians, for we know that if our earthly house, this tent, is destroyed, we have a building from God, a house not made with hands, eternal in the heavens. For in this we groan earnestly, desiring to be clothed with our habitation which is from heaven. If indeed, having been clothed, we should not be found naked. For we who are in this tent groan, being burdened, not because we want to be unclothed, but further clothed, that mortality may be swallowed up in life. Now he who has prepared this very thing is God, who also has given us the Spirit as the guarantee, so that we are always confident, knowing that while we are at home in the body, we are absent from the Lord. For we walk by faith, not by sight. So it says there in 2 Corinthians chapter 5, verse 1, for we know that our earthly house, this tent, is destroyed. We have a building from God, a house not made with hands, eternal in the heavens. So yeah, I do pray the Lord give me a holy affection for Him, a detachment from this world, and a longing for the eternal building of God, the city of God, the heavenly Jerusalem, the new creation, seeing God face to face, the beatific vision, worshiping God in that the new world with the holy angels, the elect saints, and the persons of the Godhead. So yeah, so this morning I'm writing in my diary, reading Christ is the Christian's Religion by Thomas Cole, and just seeking to live a quiet life. So I hope you're having a good Sunday. Hope you have a good new week. I just thought I'd tell you about Todd the Librarian. Keep him in your prayers. Comment. And I told him if he puts a fundraiser up, I would we would donate. And we're praying for him. So I hope you're having a good Sunday, a good new week. And until next time, bye.